guys, we have done it. Another year of movies is in the books. This year was particularly special because a lot of the movies that we were supposed to get last year were delayed into this year, and even this year we weren't sure if we were going to get those movies. So a lot of blockbusters got delayed into this year, and a lot of them were great. That's not saying my whole list is blockbusters, but there are a few films on here that I think you should check out that are definitely mid-budget or smaller budget. They're films that need some recognition, and they're films that definitely deserve to be viewed along with major blockbusters. So this is going to be my list of the best movies of 2021. And I do have some honorable mentions. A Quiet Place Part 2, Luca, In the Heights, Fear Street Part 2, 1978, Nobody, I Care a Lot, Those Who Wish Me Dead, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. Those were great movies this year that unfortunately didn't make the list, even though I still really liked or loved those movies. But these 15, yes, 15 movies were definitely the ones that stuck with me the most this year. I actually had to expand the list this year past 10 because I just couldn't narrow it down to 10. So now that the honorable mentions are out of the way, let's get going with the list. Coming in at number 15. Spider-Man No Way Home is the culmination of the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, in which Tom Holland gives not only the best performance of Spider-Man, but the best performance of his career. It goes to darker places that you don't expect the story to go to, which leads to more emotional weight within the story itself. There's a lot of fan service, but the fan service never gets in the way of telling the actual story. And when the fan service is here, it feels like it's naturally weaved in to the story. And certain characters feel like they are supporting characters in the movie, and that's the best I could ask for a movie that really does feel like it's going to be fan service for fan service's sake, and it's not. Spider-Man No Way Home was one of the best cinematic events of the year, and I cannot wait to watch it again. Encanto comes in at number 14, and Encanto is one of those Disney movies that I really didn't know what to expect. It's a musical. It doesn't necessarily have a main villain, and it did take me slightly a bit to get into the story, but once it got past the 15 to 20 minute mark, this movie was smooth sailing with great characters, great voice acting, fantastic animation, and fantastic visuals, and not a single skippable song. You can't say that a lot about Disney animation. Spencer was really a different type of biopic. It was more of a fictionalized biopic, even though it is about a real-life figure in Princess Diana, who was played here magnificently by Kristen Stewart. I really didn't expect the movie to get as psychologically invested as it did, and kind of toy with your mind, and actually feel like at times a horror movie, even though it wasn't a straight out horror movie. This is an isolated, self-contained movie that takes place mostly in one location over the course of a weekend, and it really dives into Princess Diana's psyche and her thoughts going through her mind as she mulls over the decision as to whether or not she wants to divorce the Prince of Wales. Definitely paid off in the long run. At number 12, we have Coda. This is on Apple TV+. If you have yet to see it, please go see it because the supporting cast in here, as far as I know, is all deaf. And they do a magnificent job. I forget what the young actress's name in this movie is. That's the main character, but she's an up-and-coming young actress, and she's got a lot of talent. This was a movie I watched late at night, thinking, okay, I could put this on, fall asleep, come back to it another day. I didn't. I was invested for the entire hour and 50-minute runtime, and I was actually really, really, really moved by the message that this movie has for the deaf community, and it gave the deaf community some purpose. And number 11, one of the more underrated films of the year, if you ask me, and that is Last Night in Soho. Edgar Wright's first attempt into a horror movie was everything I could have asked for. This movie took me on a whirlwind of twists and turns. From the moment the movie opened, I thought I had this entire thing figured out. Just piecing the puzzle together to get to my own conclusion until the movie told me that my conclusion wasn't actually the answer to the puzzle and the story that I thought it was going to be. And I appreciate the movie for that, because in the long run, the actual twist of the movie makes all the sense in the world. Couple this with great costume design, a great 1960s setting, some of the best young talent in the business right now in Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy, some really actually creepy imagery sprinkled throughout. This was one of the biggest surprises of the year, and I don't know why I'm surprised by an Edgar Wright movie at this point. Number 10, we have a controversial pick here, but that is Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. The Last Duel isn't your typical Ridley Scott medieval historical epic. It's a historical drama that plays off more like a Game of Thrones episode with fantastic performances all across the board from Jodie Comer, Matt Damon, and Adam Driver. This is one of the most unsettling, disturbing, haunting, just gross and icky movies I have seen all year. It makes you uncomfortable. But because it's told from 3 different perspectives, it also leads you down the path of not knowing which perspective is the right one until you get to the final perspective and who to believe. This is a movie that you don't see made at all nowadays. $100 million budget and it bombed at the box office. Subject matter is dense, uncomfortable, and definitely dirty. But the craftsmanship behind the movie is so good. There's no doubt about it. At number 9, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is the best Marvel movie of the year. Introduced us to a great new Marvel hero with a great backstory involving his father, whose motivations you understand, and that is what makes a Marvel villain for me. When the motivation makes sense and you can somewhat agree with the main villain of an MCU movie, and it's played magnificently by Tony Leung. It had everything you could want from a Marvel movie while also feeling fresh and original. It was some of the most fun I've had at the movies this year. Talking about fun, number 8 is James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Yeah, the 2016 bullshit by David Ayer gets a mulligan. That is wiped out of existence with this movie. This was hilarious from start to finish. This was what I wanted from a Suicide Squad movie. And I know that I'm somebody who advocates being challenged as an audience member, but when first movie betrayed everything that the Suicide Squad was about, and James Gunn came in and was like, let me do an actual faithful adaptation of something the Suicide Squad would actually be, made for a really entertaining movie. It has one of my favorite Harley Quinn scenes ever. Margot Robbie still plays that role very well. Just a weird-ass superhero movie that wasn't afraid to get weird, and it knew it was weird, and it made it that much more fun. At number 7, we have King Richard, one of Will Smith's best performances of his career. I really liked how this showed how Venus and Serena Williams' dad actually got them into the sport of tennis, and just how arrogant and stubborn he was, but he just wanted what was best for his kids. You have great support from the supporting actors here, and there's some elements about Richard Williams that I didn't think the movie would touch upon, and it went there. And from what I've heard, that's actually what happened in real life. So kudos to this movie for sticking mostly as true as it could to the actual real life father of Venus and Serena Williams. Number 6 is Belfast. This was a really good movie that took me by storm. It's filmed mostly in black and white. It's a great coming-of-age story that's directed very well by Kenneth Branagh. Has great supporting performances from Cyrene Hines and Judi Dench, and it just goes to show that you can break away from what holds you back in your neighborhood. And while people may have different beliefs that could lead to possible fights in the streets, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, everyone's a human being. At number 5, we have the harder they fall. It's out on Netflix. Check it out because the Western genre, unfortunately, is a dying genre. This has so much style and smoothness to it that every second of this movie, every frame, caught my attention. It is so well filmed. The shootouts are really fun. It was just a really fun, unique take on the Western genre based on real life people, but a fictionalized version of those real life figures. The story here to be really captivating. And what they say in a movie is that the opening 10 minutes of a movie and the last 10 minutes of a movie are the ones that are going to be the ones that stick with you. And the opening 10 minutes of this movie hooked me. From there, I was on for this ride. At number 4, we have Judas and the Black Messiah. Judas and the Black Messiah features great performances from Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya. This is a story that is worth telling. It is one of the most intense movies I have seen all year. There's a shootout in the middle of this movie where I was just like blown away. It is so well written and well directed. I've already sung my praises about this when I saw it at Sundance. There's so much to unpack in Judas and the Black Messiah. And it says a lot about civil rights movements. These are movies that we need more of. And I wish that we would get more of, and I wish directors would just take these risks. At number 3, we have Raya and the Last Dragon. This was my favorite Disney animation of the year. This was a really cool fantasy story. I gravitate more towards fantasy stories like this. It does feel a bit like How to Train Your Dragon, but there's enough to differentiate from How to Train Your Dragon. And especially when the dragon Sisu comes into the movie and it's played by Awkwafina, that could have been a train wreck. But luckily, it wasn't. It added a lot of life to the movie. The animation is very smooth. It's very colorful. It's got some great action set pieces for an animation movie. I just love the world, the story, the characters, especially Raya. Kelly Marie Tran doing a great job at voicing that character. This was the Disney movie of the year for me. At number 2, we have The Mitchells versus the Machines. This could have been flip-flopped with Raya and the Last Dragon, but what it came down to was which one, if I had to pick between the two movies, these were the last two movies in the world, which one would I watch first? I would watch The Mitchells versus the Machines because it has a main character that I think is more relatable to me. It deals with a dysfunctional family, and even though we may not have a dysfunctional family at all times, I think at times people can relate to how dysfunctional a family can be and how sometimes a family road trip or a family event can actually create bonding experiences for families. And I just like the fact that this plot revolves around technology and the dangers of technology. It's Lord and Miller. They didn't direct it. Their blueprint is all over this movie, especially in the animation style. This was the most fun I had watching an animated movie this year. All right, guys, it is time. Time for the number 1 movie of the year. It's probably not the best movie, but it is by far my favorite movie of the year. At number 1, we have No Time to Die. Was a fitting and emotional and satisfying conclusion for Daniel Craig's run as James Bond. This was my most anticipated movie of the year, and it did not disappoint. This movie, despite what Rotten Tomatoes will tell you, was daring, bold, and risky. There were directions that I expected it to go, and it didn't go those directions. But the directions that it took, I really loved, and it made the character of James Bond a lot more human than he has ever been. And if you are not crying by the end of the movie, you have no soul. You are astral projecting in the movie theater or in your own home, and your body is just this weightless thing that doesn't understand emotion. Look, I understand that No Time to Die has some deficiencies in its script, but deficiencies in a script can be overlooked if the emotional core and the emotional weight of the movie is super strong. And there's a scene in the middle of this movie between Bond and Madeline that I think is one of my favorite scenes of the year. The lighting's perfect, it's shot perfectly, the dialogue is great, and it evoked that emotion out of me. This is the smoothest, crispiest cinematography I have seen in a big budget blockbuster in a long time, and I wish more big budget blockbusters followed the blueprint of the Bond series. Practical stunts, meticulous care for how it's shot and directed, minimal use of CGI, and speaking of how it's directed, Cary Fukunaga just injected some life and energy back into the action scenes in this movie. A stunning and fitting farewell to Daniel Craig as Bond, the best final film a Bond actor has gotten to date. Those are what I think are the best movies of 2021. If I missed anything, no, Dune does not count, sorry. Not in my eyes, but if you have similarities on your lists, or if you want to drop your lists in the comment section below, feel free to do so. I will leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.